Is India playing both sides, or is it building a world where it doesn't have to choose? If you have spent any time in the Think BRICS community, you know the debate. Half of you believe India is the quiet, indispensable pillar of the multipolar world. The other half think New Delhi is Washington's Trojan horse inside BRICS, smiling at Moscow while reporting back to the Pentagon. Today, I'm giving you the facts that will force both sides to update their view. Because while mainstream headlines were focused on India's military exercises with the United States, while everyone was debating whether Modi was drifting west, a quiet agreement was finalized in Moscow. It is called RELOS, the Reciprocal Exchange of Logistics Support. And what it actually means in plain terms is this: Russia now has access to India's most strategic ports, naval bases, and airfields, permanently by law, ratified by Vladimir Putin himself in late 2025. We are talking Visakhapatnam, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and in return, India gets access to Murmansk, Severomorsk, and Vladivostok, Russia's Arctic ports on the Northern Sea route. Out here, things shift. Not some minor detail at the back, nothing stamped official and filed away. This is a reordering of the Indian Ocean. And here is the question I want you to hold in your mind for the next 10 minutes. India already has a logistics deal with the United States. It's called LEMOA. Now it has RELOS with Russia. So whose ships get priority in a crisis? Whose side is India really on? Follow me till the end, because the answer to that question is the definition of what a multipolar world looks like in practice. Let's start with the mechanics, because the details here are genuinely shocking, and most Western analysts are completely ignoring them. RELOS was signed in Moscow in February 2025 and ratified into Russian law by the end of that year. But this isn't your standard logistics deal, and I want to explain why that distinction matters. Most military logistics agreements cover occasional port calls. The ship stops, refuels, moves on. That's what you would expect from a routine agreement. RELOS is not that. Under this pact, each country is permitted to simultaneously station up to 3,000 military personnel, 5 warships, and 10 fighter aircraft on the other's territory, not just as guests, but as a continuous, legally structured presence. Listen that again. Up to 3,000 Russian troops, 5 Russian warships, 10 Russian fighters on Indian soil simultaneously, legally, and vice versa. Indian assets and Russia. The pact also covers refueling, repairs, spare parts, and essential supplies. And here is the detail that connects directly to the economic story I will get to in a moment. It operates on a barter-based cost reimbursement system, goods and services exchanged instead of dollars or euros. That's not just convenient, that's a direct structural bypass of Western financial pressure. Now, why does India need this for its own hardware? Because 60 to 70% of India's military inventory is Russian origin. S-400 air defense systems, Su-30 MKI fighters, T-90 tanks. Without reliable Russian logistics support, that equipment becomes vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, exactly the kind the West has been weaponizing through sanctions. RELOS reduces those logistical costs by an estimated 20 to 25%. But here is the detail almost no one is covering. This deal gives Russia access to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. For those who don't know, that's India's most strategically positioned territory, sitting at the mouth of the Strait of Malacca, through which over 80% of China's oil imports pass. Russia now has a logistics foothold at the most sensitive maritime choke point in Asia. The multipolar sea is not a theory, it now has an address. Now, some of you are thinking, okay, Anastasia, this is a military deal. I follow Think BRICS for the economic picture. Fair. Here is why RELOS is one of the most consequential economic developments of this decade. Without a security umbrella, the International North-South Transport Corridor, the INSTC, the multimodal trade route connecting Russia, Iran, and India, bypassing both the Suez Canal and Western controlled choke points, is physically exposed to pressure. Sanctions, naval positioning, proxy interference at weak nodes. RELOS changes that calculation fundamentally. When Russian and Indian warships share port infrastructure, the cost of interfering with that trade corridor rises dramatically. You are not just sanctioning a shipping company anymore. You are confronting two nuclear armed powers with a shared logistics network. And think about what actually flows through that corridor: Russian oil, Russian fertilizers, Indian pharmaceuticals, and manufactured goods. These supply chains already operate in rupees and rubles, bypassing SWIFT. RELOS is the physical reinforcement layer that makes those financial agreements credible. But here is where the story gets even bigger. Through RELOS, India gains formal access to Murmansk, Severomorsk, and Vladivostok, Russia's major Arctic-facing ports along the Northern Sea route. The Northern Sea route can cut shipping times between Asia and Europe by 30 to 40% compared to the Suez Canal. Every year, as Arctic ice retreats, that route becomes viable for a longer window. India is also using this access to accelerate imports of liquefied natural gas from Russia's Yamal Peninsula, a critical need as conflicts in the Middle East disrupt Gulf supply lines. Is India just protecting today's trade? No. India is claiming its seat at the table for the next generation of global shipping before that table is even fully built. This is a 20-year strategic play designed as a naval logistics agreement. Now, let's address the debate directly, the one happening in your comments right now. The Trojan Horse argument is not stupid. The people making it are paying attention. India does joint exercises with the United States, Japan, and Australia through the Quad. India did receive Western pressure over Russian oil purchases. These are real facts, and I am not going to dismiss them. But here is what the Trojan horse argument gets fundamentally wrong. A Trojan horse serves one master. India doesn't. And the proof is right here in the text of RELOS itself. The comparison between LEMOA and RELOS is striking. While LEMOA, India's logistics deal with the United States, covers basic logistics and port access, RELOS allows for the permanent stationing of military platforms and combat troops. India has not granted Washington that level of access, not even close. That distinction is a deliberate signal. Former Indian diplomats describe the Russia relationship as a long-standing, deeply rooted friendship. That is, explicitly not a zero-sum game with Western ties. Here is another layer here our community will immediately understand. While Western partners have threatened sanctions, issued lectures, and attached conditions to every technology transfer, Russia has consistently put its most advanced capabilities on the table without preconditions. Take the Su-57E stealth fighter. Russia has formally offered India a full transfer of technology for its most advanced combat aircraft, something no Western nations has ever done with a comparable platform. India's internal debate on whether to accept is still open, with some voices pushing for the domestically developed AMCA program instead. But the point stands: Russia made the offer. Washington has never even had that conversation with New Delhi. Then look at what is already done. Joint production of BrahMos missiles now being exported globally. AK-203 factories in Amethi, India, at 100% indigenization. The BrahMos joint venture already 80% Indian. These aren't promises. These are factories running on Indian soil, producing weapons under Indian hands. The contrast is clear. One partner says, here is what you can have if you behave. The other says, here is how to build it yourself. And the timing of this ratification is not accidental. Sources indicate that as Washington began flirting with Pakistan, investing in Balochistan, seeking mediation through Islamabad, India responded by tightening its embrace of Moscow. The geopolitical message being sent to Washington is explicit. India has options. Don't push it. So the bridge framing India as the connective tissue between the two worlds is not just poetic, it's structural. India made itself too valuable to either superpower to be sacrificed by either superpower. Remember the question I asked at the beginning: whose ships get priority, American or Russian, in a crisis? Here is your answer. That question itself is proof the multipolar world is already here. In a unipolar world, India would have to choose. It would have to pick a master and hope that master was kind. But India has engineered a reality where both fleets need Indian ports. Both powers need Indian cooperation. India doesn't answer to either fleet, and that is the most powerful position on the geopolitical board. RELOS is one brick in this wall, added to the international north-south transport corridor, added to the rupee-ruble trade mechanism, added to the India's SCO membership, added to the BrahMos joint ventures and the Arctic LNG agreements. The pattern is undeniable. The era of unilateral dictates is over, and as the first Russian warships dock at Indian naval facilities under this agreement, a multipolar sea is no longer a theoretical concept. It is a lived military reality. So I will leave you with this. India has a logistics deal with the United States, and now it has RELOS with Russia, one that goes significantly further. Is this double game a masterstroke of sovereignty, the kind of strategic autonomy the global south has been waiting decades to see? Or is it a dangerous hedge that will eventually force a choice India isn't ready to make? Tell me in the comments. And be specific, does RELOS prove India is a genuine BRICS partner? Or is this just another deeper layer of hedging? If this analysis gave you something the mainstream media didn't, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone still convinced India is a Western puppet. Let's change the conversation. Thanks for watching.